So this week, just to make things a little bit more exciting for myself, I decided to get out in a bit more real world situations, like I was flying for a job and flew my drone at pretty locations just to see how it goes, to see how it felt, to test things out. And while some of the footage looks pretty nice, I feel there are a few major flaws with it. See, a couple of things I learnt from flying that is, I like that fast look, I like that kind of FPV-ish style look, but all that footage was quite straight on, going fast and trying to go as low as I can. All of that, I think, was filmed in sport mode. Just about all of that was filmed in sport mode, and sport mode's got some pretty big limitations. One is just that motion feels more like a traditional drone rather than an FPV drone. And two, when you're flying along really fast and the camera's tilted up like that and the drone's tilted down and you're hooning along, these obstacle avoidance sensors here are pointed quite low. And when I'm flying along a meter off the ground, whatever, these are constantly, well, the controller, the headsets, goggles are constantly beeping at me, telling me I'm about to crash into something, just because they are pointing down, because I'm flying that fast. Plus, like I said, it is kind of linear in that movement. And so this week I really wanted to work on that to transition from that sport mode more into manual. Now, manual definitely has some trickier requirements to step up to. It's not just a case of, for me, even though I'm kind of comfortable in it, I can't do that same low and fast as I could in sport mode that I can in manual, but manual has that FPV look. So I came up with a project, the fence project. On the farm I live on, there are some nice straight long fences, and I thought it would be a good thing to practice on, to fly along filming those fences, treating the fences like they are a subject, a line to follow. Fences are generally pretty boring, but if I can make them look exciting, then I think I can make more exciting content look even better. So practicing on the dull to up my skills and my game. And a big part of this was just repetition, coming in at different angles, different heights, different speeds, trying different techniques. And there's quite a few things I learned from this flying along in manual, just following a straight line. Number one is I can fly straight along at the fence like this, looking down, but that looks a little bit like that sport mode, and it also, because it's one fixed angle, it doesn't really give a 3D feel to the subject, to this fence. So what ends up happening is I'm trying to fly a little bit side on, but to do this I eventually cross over it. So there's this little bit of like a sway as I'm flying along the fence, which I actually don't mind. It gives that 3D feel, because you can see both sides of the subject I'm filming. Next up, starting high and coming in low. And this is kind of basic videography, photography practice. That wide establishing shot, trying to capture this before doing the close-up in one continual shot, I think would make a great formula for entertaining content. To start wide, to show the whole area of what we're doing, and then as I come in closer, it really makes it seem like I've got insanely closer because we're comparing it to that wide shot. And next up, low and fast. Like the closer, the lower I can get, the faster I can go. It definitely makes something far more exciting. So that was good practice, good education. I'm going to keep working on that because it's just a fence. It doesn't make the greatest YouTube content, but I definitely felt my skills. And after flying each day at it, going through a couple of batteries, filming just that fence and the surroundings a little bit, coming back and looking at my footage afterwards and analysing it and working out what I liked and didn't like, I think was great education. But then we actually had a job to do. I needed to film a pump track, a bike track that had just been finished construction, and I had two of the contractors that had been working on it there to ride on it for a very short limited amount of time before they finished up and left. And I thought the FPV drone would be a great experience, a great thing to practice on a job, and I think it would suit that kind of fast-paced content. Now, I hadn't met these riders, I didn't know too much about it other than to meet them at this pump track, this bike track, and I get to film whatever I want. So I strapped a GoPro on my rider's chest as a bit of a redundancy, and then I did a couple of practice runs with my drone just flying around the track, seeing how I felt about it. And I learned something pretty major from that, is I'm not quite slow and controlled enough yet in manual to do something like this. Sport mode for me definitely felt more in control and more comfortable. So kind of counterintuitive to what I'd just been practicing on, we flicked back to sport from this. And I learned a couple of things. One, I need to definitely get more control of my manual flying, but two, trying to get as close as possible isn't necessarily best. So following that ride and getting as close as I can is pretty neat, and I like the shot, but then I also got another shot in where I was just that little bit further back, a little bit wider, and it shows a bit more of the track, and that's definitely got its place, its use as well. So I don't always have to get close, and that bit of a mix was pretty good. And that was filmed pretty early in the day. So later on that day, I was feeling quite excited. Filming those bikes was really enjoyable, and I felt like doing more FPV flying. So back to manual. It was a little bit windier that day once I returned back home, but I thought I'd be fine to still fly around it. So I got the drone out and went to carry on with my fence project, just following along, practice doing those laps, the repetition to try and make a boring fence look entertaining, but also, because there was a little bit of a wind, trying to slow down a little bit, get a little bit more control to it, and also practicing in the wind. Wind definitely pushes you off to the side. So normally when I was swaying back and forth over that fence, if the wind was coming at a bit of a cross angle, I was able to fly a little bit actually just constantly on one side without having to sway back and forth a little bit, which was an interesting thing to apply to my flying, just because the wind would keep me offside a little bit, which maybe implies that wind was a little bit stronger than I should have been flying in maybe, but the drone seemed to handle it fine. And then I thought a neat thing to do to start practicing on, something I hadn't done before, to up my game, is I was flying near a half-round hay barn, and I thought if I opened up both sides of the doors of that, there's quite a gap in there to fly through, quite a longer gap than the usual gaps I've been practicing on, and I thought this would be pretty easy. And so I started out safe, flicked back to sports mode, flew through twice, and that felt pretty good. And then I was flying around, following my fences, going nice and slow, feeling quite comfortable, going into the wind, and I thought I'd turn around and come back through this barn in manual mode. And what happened here is, as I'm coming up to the barn, feeling quite slow and comfortable and in control, the wind, because I've changed direction now, is pushing me a different direction. I'm trying to countering for it, and as I'm flying on a bit of an angle to counter, I've got to apply more power, which is speeding me up a little bit. I went to correct, which just saw me looking at the top of the barn, so I decided to commit to it and fly through, and I just managed to clip those legs on some hay bales, stumble through a little bit, and then I'm pulling up just before I hit that fence near the end there, and I puckered up. That was an entertaining little bit of flight. So needless to say, I packed things up straight away. Drone was absolutely fine, closed those hay barn doors, and called it for the day. I'm not going to try too many gaps and too many things like that until I've got far more. Actually, you know what? Just in the wind, I'm just not going to push it too much. I only do things that I'm feeling quite safe with. that was enough. So me and the drone, gave it a couple of days for that wind to die down, and I got home from, after a business meeting, kind of not long, around lunchtime, and I'm going to be honest, this is definitely not normally me, but I'd had a few small drinks at this meeting, and I wasn't feeling quite 100%, but it was a beautiful day, there was no wind, and I felt like flying my drone, getting in some more practice. So once again, just committed to doing things slow and simple, trying to get that control into manual and just trying to get some comfort up. And I was practicing some different gaps in manual, gaps that I've done before in sport mode, but now just getting more and more comfortable in manual. Going completely too slow is actually a little bit tricky because there's a lot of this, but when you're going forward, it feels like there's a lot more flow. So when I was going a little bit faster, there's a lot more flow. So I was feeling like I was getting smoother footage just from that little bit of speed, but not too much. Still very much trying to keep it in control, flying through gaps, feeling comfortable. And then came in just to do a gap I'd done half a dozen times before. And just clipped the ground. It wasn't a big crash. I was going pretty slow, nothing major. And it ate dust again, and it needed a bit of cleaning up, and I had to take things apart a little bit, which we'll cover off in another video actually, because I think that was informative to do. But still, I'm happy I'm crashing, to be honest. The drone's holding up, which is far more reassuring. The crashes have kind of been either I've pulled out of it or low, slow, and simple, just me trying to get low to the ground. But I'm failing, so I must be learning, and I'm feeling more and more confident with every flight. So it's been an informative week. It's been an educational week, and I definitely feel like I've learned some lessons. Number one, when doing FPV, sticking with your shot list nearly, just like in photography and videography, your wide, your close-up, your side-on, your different angles, your variation to your shot, and if you can maybe combine that all into a single take, I feel that's going to make for quite entertaining FPV videos. Number two is control. Slowing down a little bit. Like you can kind of go as fast as you feel comfortable with, for me, which is not max speed, but as fast as I feel comfortable with. I can go as slow as I practically can, and for me, just like 10-20% over that slowest as I practically can actually feels like a commercially viable speed, rather than trying to do everything as fast as I feel comfortable with. I need to practice more that like follow a human being doing something kind of speed, rather than at 100 k's an hour. And next up is focus. If I'm not feeling 100% in my head, maybe don't try and do 100%. Maybe not try and push boundaries of what I've learned. Things like bugs, pets, grass tickling your legs, little things flying around that when you're wearing goggles, you're not aware of these little things that can affect you, especially a fly landing on you when you're trying to do something. You twitch a little bit and that throws off your motion. So maybe if you can sit in the shade if it's not too hot, and wear maybe longer sleeves, trousers instead of shorts and t-shirts to remove distractions, make sure my head's in the right spot, I think the following week is actually going to be far more exciting. I think I'm going to pick some more extreme locations and try and do a bit more FPV, full manual, cinematic, exciting experience. If you'd like to follow along, or if you have any questions, please let me know down in the comments below, or just like, share and subscribe to keep supporting more content like this. Thank you very much for following along, guys, and until next time, we'll catch you next time.